U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has arrived in Washington, D.C. to take part in the swearing-in ceremony that will mark his return to the White House. This comes amid a Wall Street Journal report claiming that Trump is planning a visit to China and India after he takes office. Donald Trump arrived in the Air Force One aircraft along with his family at the Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. on Saturday to take oath as the 47th President of the United States. Ahead of the presidential inauguration ceremony, the 78-year-old will take part in a fireworks display with some 500-odd guests at his Virginia Golf Club located in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. On the eve of his swearing-in ceremony, the U.S. President-elect will be holding a rally with his supporters at the Capital One Arena in downtown Washington on Sunday. Trump will also be holding another rally after the inauguration ceremony, ahead of Trump's inauguration ceremony. Authorities have beefed up security as Washington, D.C. has been transformed into a fortress. The inauguration ceremony has been cordoned with 30 miles of fencing, while 25,000 troops will be deployed to monitor the event. Additionally, D.C. police will also be using state-of-the-art helicopter to keep a close eye on the crowds. The helicopter's onboard camera can reportedly track a license plate 1,000 feet above the ground and can send back the live video feed to the department's real-time crime center. Amidst this, thousands gathered in Washington, D.C. to witness Trump's inauguration ceremony and the preparations that are in place. And apart from that, to protest against Trump's anti-abortion policies, protesters were seen yelling chants, pounding drums and holding signs that read, "Save America," "Against abortion, then don't have one," and "Hate won't win." The Washington protests saw over 500,000 demonstrators, while millions took part in the protests. At Boston, thousands took part in a rally addressing several issues like women's rights, access to abortion, and climate change.
We came out here to show our daughters that they don't have to put up with not being equal and not having reproductive rights, not having healthcare rights, not having rights. We came out here to teach them how to fight back, because that's what America was built on, and we want one day for them to not have to fight, but until then we're going to teach them how to fight.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump has reportedly told his advisors that he is planning to visit China and India after assuming office. According to the Wall Street Journal report, the visit aims at improving bilateral ties between Beijing and Washington after Trump threatened to impose tariffs. In addition, Trump has also expressed his interest to visit India. Reports suggest that preliminary talks were initiated during a visit by India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to Washington, D.C. in December last year. Jaishankar will also take part in the presidential inauguration ceremony that will be held on January 20th, 2025. Furthermore, reports have emerged that the Indian External Affairs Minister will be meeting the foreign ministers of the Quad members nation on January 21st, which is the day after Trump takes oath as the 47th President of the United States. This could mark the first meeting of the Quad foreign ministers from US, Japan, Australia and India under the Trump 2.0 administration. Later in the year, India will host the Quad Leaders Summit. For more on this, we are now being joined by Stephen Golub from California. He's a political analyst and lawyer. Stephen,
Hi.
Trump is set to resume office tomorrow, and there are a lot of questions about what will be his top priority. Latest reports now suggest that Trump will likely visit China and India in the first 100 days. What, according to you, is going to be the agenda for these meetings?
Well, Just briefly on his top priorities, I think it will be immigration issues, including rounding up people who are here illegally. Whether that's a fair, nuanced policy or not is maybe a discussion for another day. In terms of his agenda for China and India, certainly with China, it would be tariffs or the threat of tariffs that in retaliation for what he perceives as unfair economic activity by China, including allegations on his part that China is not doing what it can and should do to control the export to Mexico and drug cartels of the ingredients of fentanyl, a deadly drug that's imported into the U.S. Who knows? There may be other matters. With India, certainly strategic and economic cooperation between allies. And with both countries, there may be matters that just come up because of Trump's, well, shall we say, erratic array of interests. He often goes off in certain directions prompted by the advisors or people he's talked to recently. And whatever those recent issues that cross his mind or that cross his desk that come up outside of what I've just sketched, whatever those may also be on the plate. It's hard to predict.
Right, Stephen. In the lead up to the inauguration, the focus of Trump 2.0 has been on West Asia, Ukraine-Russia war, and China. But I want to talk about the future policies in the United States. What kind of change is anticipated under Trump 2.0?
Oh, boy, that's a good question. Do you have about 4 hours for me to answer it? Because there are so many matters that he may address. I already mentioned immigration. He says he's going to do something about the economy and inflation, or he promised that during his campaign. What he can do and what he will do really seems limited. There's the threat that he has said repeatedly over the past couple of years of his initiating prosecutions of people he sees as political enemies, people working for the Justice Department, people who are or were in Congress, others. There are literally a dozen different threats he's issued against people. Will he go through with that? We'll see, but that is something that there's a lot of concern about. There were just 2 New York Times articles today addressing that matter. Tariffs we already mentioned regarding China, but not just China, possibly Mexico, possibly Canada for fair or unfair reasons. So that's just a few of the matters or the kinds of matters that are on the table. There are dozens of others that he may pursue. Well, one other I should mention is that there is this document called Project 2025, which outlines replacing many federal career civil servants with Trump political appointees, Trump loyalists, which could have great impact and arguably do great damage across an array of federal government functions and services. And finally, we have to look at what he may do via his cabinet appointees. And just to mention one, he's talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's an anti-vaxxer, someone who doubts the validity of vaccines or actually considers them dangerous, according to his past statements, being in charge of the Health and Human Services Department, which has overall responsibility for vaccines. So that's just a sketch, part of the spectrum of what Trump may do or may prioritize, or indirectly act on within the first 100 days.
Right. The world is closely anticipating and following the lead up to Trump administration 2.0. Thanks for joining us for this chat.
Thank you very much for having me.